Algebra 1 Lesson 94. This will be a quick video about solving multi-step absolute value equations. We've done a lot of this type of thing before, so nothing super new here. So remember though, with multi-step inequalities, it's the same as multi-step equations, so we're using the same type of methods. We're going to add and subtract first, then multiply and divide. So basically going backwards from what we normally do with PEMDAS. So our goal is to get the absolute value isolated, and then we're going to break that into our two equations and solve those if anything more needs to be done. Most of the time we will get two answers, but it is possible to only get one answer or no answers at all. So let's start with these. Absolute value of x divided by 5 plus 3 is equal to 18. I first need to get rid of that addition by subtraction. So I'm going to subtract 3 from each side and get the absolute value of x over 5 is equal to 15. We're going to, since we've divided by 5, I'm going to multiply by 5 on each side, get that the absolute value of x is equal to 75. Which means at this stage, my absolute value is alone, so I can split it into its two equations. And here, I take whatever's inside of the absolute value and say that is equal to 75, and its opposite, x is equal to negative 75. Okay? Which means that I have my two answers, and there's nothing more to do to solve for x, so I leave it as is. And then for our next one, absolute value of x divided by 2 minus 1 equals 14. I'm going to add 1 to each side. Get the absolute value of x over 2 is equal to 15. I'm going to multiply by 2 on each side and get the absolute value of x is equal to 30. Now that I have my absolute value alone, I can split it into the two equations, x equals 30 or x equals negative 30, and I am done. So I get two unique answers here. Okay, I'm just going to go through a couple more of these examples here and then show you one word problem that could be used in this situation. So once more, add 9 and get 4 times the absolute value of x is equal to 24. I divide by 4 and get the absolute value of x is equal to 6. Now I can split it into x equals 6 and x equals negative 6. All right, once again, I'm going to add 10 to each side and get negative 3 times the absolute value of x is equal to 5. I divide by negative 3 and get absolute value of x is equal to negative 5/3. And then I have to stop and think. If I take the absolute value of any number, will it ever give me a negative number? And we have to say no. So in this case, this is an opportunity to say there are no solutions, because I can't take the absolute value of a number and get a negative result. So in this case, this is one of our situations where we have 0 results. Okay. So once again, just to say that a little bit again, sometimes we'll have no possible answers. We can write it just like I did, no solutions, or we can use this symbol, or we can use an empty set symbol. Okay? And once again, I'm going to show you we subtract 4 in this case and get 5 times the absolute value of x is equal to 0, or sorry, divide by 2 is equal to 0. And then I can multiply by the reciprocal, which is 2/5. So if I multiply by 2/5 on each side, I'm still going to end up having 0 here. So I have the absolute value of x is equal to 0. Well, in this case, if we were to break it up into the two equations, we would say x equals 0 and x equals negative 0, which is the same thing, okay? You can't really have a negative 0. So we end up just saying that the result is 0, because 0 is, just like an absolute value, 0 units away from 0. Okay, a couple more here. In this first, in the top right-hand case, I'm going to subtract 4 and get 5/2 times the absolute value of x is equal to 15. I multiply by 2/5, which means I can simplify a little bit and get 6 is equal to the absolute value of x, so x equals plus or minus 6. And lastly, I'm going to subtract 3 on each side, and I'm also going to simplify this a little bit. So I have absolute value of x divided by 3 is equal to negative 2. When I multiply by 3, I get absolute value of x is equal to negative 6, which is not possible. So we say there are no solutions, no solutions. Now, remember, we get our absolute value alone. Now, what happens if inside of that absolute value we have a little bit more than just x? Well, same rules apply. We're going to get that absolute value alone. So in this first case, I'm going to subtract 9. Get the absolute value of 2x is equal to 6. And at this point, I cannot go ahead and divide by 2. I have my absolute value alone, and the only thing I can do is split it into the two equations to say 2x is equal to 6, 2x is equal to negative 6. We take what's ever inside the absolute value, split it into the number and its opposite. Now we can divide by 2 and get x equal to 3, x equal to negative 3. And same goes on this right side, so I'm going to add 10 and get absolute value of 5x is equal to 35. So 5x equals 35, and 5x equals negative 35, meaning I get answers of x equals 7, x equals negative 7. All right, so get your absolute value alone and then deal with whatever else is there. Same applies here. Okay, just a few more examples. I'm going to add 8 to each side and get 6 times the absolute value of x plus 3 is equal to 18. I'm going to divide by 6, get x plus 3. Absolute value is equal to 3. Now I split it up. X plus 3 is equal to 3. X plus 3 is equal to negative 3. Meaning I'm going to subtract 3 on each side and get x is equal to 0. X is equal to negative 6. Okay, same idea. 2 times the absolute value of x minus 4 is equal to 20 once I subtract 10. I divide by 2 and get absolute value of x minus 4 is equal to 10. So I get x minus 4 is equal to 10. X minus 4 is equal to negative 10, which means x is equal to 14 and x is equal to negative, we get 14 and we get negative 6. There we go. All right, so make sure that you're working with those to get x by itself after you've gotten the absolute value by itself. So here are a couple more that you can try on your own. And then same idea goes when there's a word problem involved. So I'll have you can work through this, but just realize when you read it that that 8 points would be substituted in there, and I can simplify and solve my absolute value equation. All right, well, I hope this helps for your homework and for studying.